We had a lot of illusions about Earth. One of them was that it was basically flat and infinite with no finitude to our resources. And we had very stereotyped ideas of what the Earth looked like from space. If you look at all the images that people made before we had the photographs, almost none of them have clouds and weather and climate. There's such a thing as icons, and icons help frame people's thinking. My sense was that a photograph of Earth from space would be different in every possible way from a painting of the Earth from space. In 1966, I took some LSD on a rooftop in San Francisco. I noticed that the buildings of downtown were not parallel to one another. It was as if you were looking with a fisheye lens. They had this slightly divergent quality to them. And so basically I'm mentally elevating myself higher and higher and higher until the horizon closes around me in a circle. What I'm looking at is the surface of a sphere. I was just trying to call forth that reality. And what I thought was, taking my 100 mics of LSD on a rooftop, I know that I'll just make a button. I come up with a phrasing that I like. Why haven't we seen a photograph of the whole Earth yet? I'll distribute the button through the world, and everybody will understand we need to see a photograph of the whole Earth. And when we do, everything will be different. So I printed up a bunch of these buttons, and I went around to various universities and sold the buttons for 25 cents a piece. I sent them to Buckminster Fuller and Marshall McLuhan and all the senators and their secretaries that I could find. I sent them to various professionals at NASA and Politburo members in Russia. I just, floated this stuff out there, see what would happen.
At that time, in the late 60s, the whole Earth catalog became kind of the Sears catalog of the Back to the Land generation with this intelligence behind it of stewards. Stewart's motto was, "We are as gods, and we might as well get good at it."
The whole Earth catalog had basically appropriate technology as our contribution. Photovoltaic things that you could put on your roof that you would get 12-volt power out of. That was deemed appropriate technology. Putting something in a creek that would pump water was appropriate technology. Geodesic domes and solar equipment. Organic gardening, in that sense, was appropriate technology. People were going back to the land, back to basics, reinvent civilization, get it right this time. And the sense was that one was going to blend with nature.
The idea of going back to the land is to become more capable of providing your own subsistence and to reduce your impact and your complicity in long chains of supply. It was saying our way of life has to change. And I loved all that because it was radical.
By and large, the people who were starting rural communes, people who were going, quote, back to the land in the 1960s and on into the 70s, were pretty much liberal, educated college students. The naivete that was carted from college campuses out to these places in the bush was breathtaking. People try to garden, imagining that they could just put seeds in the ground, or we'd have a nobody's in charge, put all your money into the pot kind of social economic environment, and that would crash and burn. And the women would leave, and the men would leave soon after. All of us who went out and tried to live together in totally egalitarian mode got over it because we had our noses rubbed in our fondest fantasies. And it only took us a couple of years. And we did no great harm in the process.
It was tempting to try to throw out everything and start over. I thought about that and tried various efforts at it, lived on a commune and thought about simply retreating back to the hills, spent some time in the mountains of Virginia, way up on a mountaintop. None of that seemed to be an answer. The world around us is pretty much the world we're going to have. We're either going to work with that or we're going to lose.
One peculiarity of the counterculture in the 60s was that it was inherently really anti-technology. I think it thought technology came from government, it came from corporations, and we're going back to basics. We don't need technology, except our hi-fis, of course, and our drugs. And those could be the more technically refined those were, the better. But by and large, technology was supposed to be bad. So much of the counterculture disapproved of the space program. It was military guys with crew cuts. It was the government wasting money. Let's take care of things here on Earth before we leave it. All of this kind of rhetoric was out there, except for one guy, Jacques Cousteau, the oceans guy. He had a better sense of the sphericity of the Earth probably than any other surface-bound person at that time. What he knew was that the oceans, 2/3, 3/4 of the planet, you could not monitor, and yet terrible things were happening to it. So his sense was that you had to have satellite imagery and people looking down on the Earth from outside in order to protect the oceans. They just said, we've got to get out there.